final says in Wimbledon, but we'll look at the result.
Dovidi.
In this week's parsha, there are many psukim from Parshas Balak that have been used in various liturgy. Matzava Alecha Yaakov, La'Ra Avim B'Yaakov. But one of the psukim, one of the blessings, so to speak, which Bilam involuntarily gives Bnei Israel, has been used in as a guiding principle for Israeli policy. Ben Gurion famously said, "Lo chashuv ma goyim choshvim ela ma Yehudim osim." In a few days' time, he'll become the second longest-serving prime minister. But that was a guiding principle for foreign diplomacy in Israel. Yaakov Herzog, who Mikhaila is named after, wrote a book called "The Nation That Dwells Alone," and the chief rabbi's brother, in English, the book is called "The People That Dwells Alone," but I think the Hebrew is Am Kalavi, because he took the name Rabbi as a surname. But the idea that the nation dwells alone comes from this week's parsha. We see Bilam says, "Hein Am Vadad Yishkon V'Chaim Lo Yitchashev." And the various interpretations on what that on how to look at that pasuk. I saw originally in the Netziv, but it's repeated by Talmud of Chasam Sofer, and also in a book in the Keren Tzvi by Tzvi Hirsch Ferber, who was a rabbi in London, and sometime correspondent with Rav Kook, where the Netziv puts it very succinctly. Am levadad yishkon, when the nation dwells alone, then yishkon. But if they want to mix together with the goyim, lo yitchashev. Suddenly, then, when they mix and when they become part of the nations and forget their identity, then they're not considered anything anymore. Apparently, Raphael, I think he said that when the Jews forget to say Kiddush, the Goyim remember to say Havdalah. There's a certain uniqueness to the Jews that we have to live apart. That doesn't mean that we can't integrate with them in a cultural way and that can't be influenced. Doesn't mean that the ideas don't affect what we're doing. But to totally integrate ourselves or assimilate doesn't really work. And that was the way that Bilam perceived the people, that their strength is. And as the Medrash says, if we forget that we are, and we try to mix, then the Goyim don't always appreciate that, and we have Echai Yashva. There's another aspect. How does this exactly relate to Barmitzvah? So let's speak about dreams. Raphael brings that it says in a Medrash that if one dreams about a ka'ara, dreams about a pot, then that is a symbol of shalom, symbol of peace. And he brings from Mordechai Bennett, who says that why is a pot? Why does it symbolize peace? Because we know that fire and water can't mix. Either the water will extinguish the fire, or the fire will dry up the water. But if you put a pot on the water, if you put a pot of water in the pot and fire underneath, then heats up the pot, very nasty, and then there's a mixture. And that's how he explains that the Jews are compared to fire, the nations of the world to water. They're looking for this. And they integrate well when there's a strong barrier between them. And that's why when one dreams of a pot, it's a sign of peace between nations. We used to read a child's book to the kids when they were younger, and it was about the fish that could dream. And this little fish would dream about anything, and when he would dream about it, things would come alive, and he would be part of this, and he would dream about galaxies, and he would dream about everything. It was a special fish because no other fish could do this. But he felt very lonely, and he wanted to be like all the other fish. So he dreamed that he was a normal fish. And his dream came true and became a normal fish. But then he suddenly stopped dreaming, because fish don't dream. And I think sometimes when we integrate, on the one hand we have two pulls. We like to retain our individuality, we'd like to retain our newness and our innovation, but we're also pulled by society and by the social pressures around us. And sometimes those social pressures are good, and sometimes we do well to be in society. But if we mix too much and we want to be part of society in too strong a way, we lose that individuality. Because as a group, as a society, the dreams sometimes become trying to quash them in order that we can mix in. And it's also it's obviously very important in Alon Shput that there's a lot of importance to the youth movements, and they do wonderful work. And sometimes we get that parental authority is somewhat superior, but there is that mix and pull, and you can do wonderful things together. But as a Barmitzvah boy, and as you grow up in adolescence, it's important to remember who you are as an individual, and to make your mark as an individual, and not as just part of society, and not doing what everyone else does because that's the fad. There's another aspect to the parasha I'll just quickly mention. The Netziv wrote a few books, but one of them is famous for Amek Dobar, but he wrote a responsive called Meshiv Dobar, and in the first Chelek in I think it's Ben Dalet, I saw the reference, but I read through the whole. He takes on an article which advises that it was written by Machzikei Hadassah, one of the journals, quite right-wing orthodoxy, suggesting that people should mix among the should try to stay away and be only among the Hasidim, and not mix the Hasidim in the real sense of a Chassid, not the Kabbalistic movement, but try and be pious in their ways, and not mix too much with other people. And he suggests that isn't a good way, and that we should all unite and not worry about people's intentions. He mentions there, I think he mentions elsewhere, that the problem with Sinas Chinuch at the times of the second Beis HaMikdash was that even the Perushim thought that if someone did something which was slightly lenient, they'd call him a Saduki. And that caused Sinas Chinuch. And therefore, he has this theory that Talmud Torah unites, and even if you do Talmud Torah Shaloi Lishma, and even if the government forces one to do secular studies, and the place that you do our secular studies, that the Talmud Torah should be encouraged. And you should be encouraged to learn Torah, and you shouldn't worry about the motivations. Because there's a lot of power in Talmud Torah Shaloi Lishma, and also doing mitzvah Shaloi Lishma. And he brings also from this week's parasha that the Gemara in Sotah and other places says that while you should ask for mitzvahs of Talmud Torah Shaloi Lishma, because we see that from the 42 korbanos that Balak brought, he merited having Ruth as his descendant, even though he obviously wanted to destroy the people. But he realized that God was above, and he listened to Bilam, and he brought those sacrifices. So there's an element of Shalom Lishma, but even though that element existed, he had some skut in that. And the problem with my father often mentioned that Rav Chaim Shmulevitz would say, is Rosh Shiva, that he would say that when people say, oh, I didn't mean to do that, so it doesn't matter what the intentions are. It matters what you actually did. Too often we worry about what people think, what people feel. It's much more important what they do. And when you grow up, if you think of something, you shouldn't ever say, I should have done that. Just do it. And don't worry about if you're doing it for the right reason or for the wrong reason. The main thing is, and I think that those two messages in life, stick with your individuality and do things positively, and don't just think them. I think that will bode you well in the future. I'd like to just thank a few people. It's funny, that same verse says, Merosh Turim Ereno mi Ra'ot Asherena. When you think about Lon Shvut surrounded by Rosh Turim and Ba'ot, sticking on the Pasha and seeing it, I don't think it's good to be isolationist, and I think sometimes maybe this community is a bit too much that time, but there is something very special, and we've been a joy, because Raphael is the first child to be born in this yeshuv, and we really enjoyed it. We really enjoyed being here. I'd like to thank the family that comes from England. My uncle came from all the way from Netanya. He's an Abba, so he couldn't stay. And other people came, and we hope you enjoy. And I'd like to give a special thank you to my wife. I was at a wedding once, and the chassan thanked everyone, and then sat down, and he forgot to say anything about his bride, so we had to stop the music and carry on his talk. But I'd like to do that now.
Really?
Without her input, I don't think we'd have as special family as we do, and I'd like to thank you all.